From Houston, Texas. From Salt Lake City, Utah. From Sacramento, California. From St. Louis, Missouri. From Nashville, Tennessee. Indianapolis, Indiana. Columbus, Ohio. From Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And New York City. Here is an on-the-scene actuality television report that explores the issues and ideas of people all across the nation. This is What America Thinks. Hello, I'm David Wayne. I'd like to welcome you to this edition of What America Thinks. You know, one thing that distinguishes us humans from the lesser species is, above all, the ability to exchange ideas.
Well, I think the giveaway program is probably the most important. We've been trying to buy friends for quite some time through several administrations, and we certainly haven't been successful.
Well, if they'd spend that money putting water in here in this country's all, that'd be all that is needed. Spend that money in our own country here instead of throwing it away, sending it to foreign countries.
Well, I think one of the things that makes me the most unhappy is some of this newspaper talk about subsidy the farmers get.
Oh, the teenagers really have it too easy today. They ride around with their T-birds and with their big hot rods and money to spend like there's no tomorrow.
We really don't know where we want to be 5 years or 10 years from now, and this just tends to confuse our national problem, which in turn complicates and confuses our international views.
There can be no doubt Americans are talking and thinking about a wide variety of things. They're concerned with things international and some things very close to home. Among all the issues raised by these voices across the country, one thing struck us that nearly everyone seems concerned about: the state of our younger generation, specifically today's teenagers. Teenagers as a group have been praised and damned. They've been accused of many things. We thought we'd dig a little deeper to find out more about them, how others feel about them, how they feel about themselves. Curiously, out of the answers, you can almost feel the winter, summer, and spring of life. That is, by the age groups of the people with whom we talked. There are the elders who view teenagers in context with the old days, the past. There are those of us who look to the present, and of course the youngsters peering into the future and the world whose responsibilities they will one day inherit. Is life being made too easy for the teenagers today? We began our questioning in New York City at a sidewalk cafe in Greenwich Village.
It isn't the teenagers, I think it's the parents. The parents aren't home with the children. They're either running here or running there, and they leave the children with the television and the television meal. Mama doesn't cook the old meal the way they used to do. She spend a half a day cooking, and a half a day serving them, and a half a day washing the dishes, and the family was happy.
I think that the biggest problem is that the parents don't seem to realize they can look back into when they were teenagers and see how the situations were at that time. And they just seem to be accusing the teenagers of so many things, and so many things that really was happening in their day and age.
Well, I think that the majority of the teenagers really don't cause the trouble, and I think that the newspapers are the ones that are going into sensationalism. For example, in Fort Lauderdale, there were 34,000 teenagers, and only 400 got arrested. And some of those shouldn't have got arrested. They were just arrested because they were at the scene. And I think that sometimes in towns like Daytona and Fort Lauderdale, the police are looking for trouble, because I know we were stopped because we were just looking in shop windows, and they told us to move on because we were loitering.
This idea of morals and the sex explosion, as you want to talk about it on the campuses,
I don't think it's as personified as many people make it out to be. I think it's more, we're adjusting to our times. We're in an era of change.
We talked with people in Sacramento, California.
They're having too much money to spend. You're giving them cars. They're overdressed. And they've got too much on their own. The people don't curb them in their homes.
Well, let me preface my answer by saying that I am a police science and administration major. And I do definitely think that the teenagers have it too easy today. This is quite apparent in the rising juvenile delinquency rate.
In St. Louis, we spoke with a professional football player.
Well, I was inclined to feel that way until last night. I happened to be attending an affair at a local church in town, and I heard a very dynamic speaker, the former coach of Illinois, Ray Elliott, talk. And of course, I had thought that our teenagers weren't going anywhere, but he tells me that, and he put it in such a way that he says, well, in my era, he says, they never threw the shot 65 feet. He says they never ran in 9,300s. They never high jumped 7 feet. They never pole vaulted 16 feet. He said, this must mean one thing. He says, let's not kid ourselves. He says, maybe that this country is on a physical fitness kick, but currently the kids today are outperforming anything they ever did in my era, so we must be going the right way.
Is their life too easy, we asked at Ohio State.
Well, definitely not. Teenager today is expected to accept more responsibility. He's expected to be at once a mature, supposedly mature individual, and at the same time still be an adolescent or a youngster. And he's expected to sort of make himself to be both of these opposing things at the same time. And he has a bit of internal conflict trying to uphold both of these positions at once.
I would say that because there are so many pressures, not only from the Cold War, but educational standards are getting so much higher. There are fewer and fewer jobs each year. Automation has a lot to do with this. In this sense, no, they don't have it easy. But in the sense of having more material things that they're within their grasp, I would say they are pampered somewhat. Their parents, for instance, children anymore expect their parents to hand out money for dates on Saturday night, hand them the car keys, and send them on their merry way. I think in this sense they get too idealistic a viewpoint on life.
In Pennsylvania?
Frankly, I don't think he does have it too easy. I think he's got a frightening world to come into where times are changing, everything's advancing, and old traditions are being torn away, everything's being questioned, and our toys are becoming bigger. We have to find out some answers as far as world problems, and I think that it's a frightening world, and the older generation has no answers, and he's got to find them out for himself.
No, I feel the other way around. I think that people today aren't, well, they're not going at the same pace the teenager is. There's such a difference between a teenager today and 100 years ago during the Civil War.
Returning to New York City, we listened as a young man sitting with his family at a sidewalk cafe looked back to the recent past. He spoke of the days when he had been a teenager and recalled his feelings and philosophy during that often misunderstood time.
I remember my own feelings as a teenager. I felt that I could have anything I ever wanted. It's a kind of a, the glands begin to go, and it's a magic time. I could have anything I ever wanted. I would always be a teenager. The world was made for me, the teenager. That's how they always feel, and now that I'm an old man, right, they give me some sass. I resent it. But I can put myself in their position and realize that when I was their age, I felt the same. And they do a lot of amazing things. They're so much more intelligent now, so much more sophisticated, worldly. They're just a different breed of human being, and I feel that the adult world hasn't got the hang of what they're doing. Maybe they don't ever. Maybe that's what makes, young men depose old men, and people grow up and die and so forth.
And that's how some people feel about our teenagers, who they say have it too easy, need to be curbed in, yet who are living in a magic time in a frightening world. So having considered the problems of kids on the corner, befitting this enlightened time, we turned to the idea of putting men on the moon. To begin our questioning, we went first to the place where the Apollo moonshot will be controlled, the NASA base now being built south of Houston, Texas.
I think the project to put the man on the moon is a good one. I think that there are certain fringe benefits that will come out of it. There will be an increase in knowledge, and it is good to have America out ahead of the rest of the nations in something that is as important to the human race as this.
If we just look at the moon race alone, probably we would question it. But if we look at what it will bring us in the future, certainly let's just go back to World War II. It was a costly experience, but what we have gained from the money spent, we not only won a war, but we have won many things that have made this life much more enjoyable. And I think this can come out of the moon race. I think it's very important that we have the moon race.
They've failed so many times just trying to get a camera up there, till I think maybe God doesn't even want anybody on the moon.
Well, I think, myself, I think it's very foolish us spending billions of dollars where our people in the Midwest are starving. I see where we can spend it on them. Give them everything that we possibly can. Because actually, well, what good is it to us to get to the moon first? I can't see it. For me personally, I can't see spending billions of dollars for that purpose.
I don't think we're wasting money. To my opinion, I feel that the throw-offs from the space program have gone to industry in general. We've gotten a lot of technology in this respect. Not only this, I feel that the romantic attitude that people have had throughout history is prevalent today. What we have today is no more different than when Columbus sailed across the ocean and caused new frontiers to be opened. I think we're about in the same type of situation now. On this basis, I don't feel that we're spending too much money.
Well, I don't know how this race to the moon will turn out. The Russians may land a man on the moon before we do. But I'll bet this, I'll bet 10 to 1, we get there first with foreign aid.
In addition to the many of us who are looking toward the moon or away from it, as the case may be, this is the season for a special brand of stargazers. These are the poll takers, the prognosticators who tenderly probe the political pulse of the nation. This led us to ask what we thought was a very simple question. Sometimes, it appears, the answers to a simple question can become complex. The question: what is the difference between a Republican and a Democrat? We asked this question of one of the workers in the farmers market in Nashville, Tennessee.
That is a question that I've been asking for years. Before Kennedy was elected the first time, I wrote Kennedy, President Johnson, Eisenhower, Truman, and others. I wrote newspapers, but no one does not know. I do not know myself.
The difference between Republicans and Democrats, well, we Democrats, you know, think that the Republicans are still living in the 19th century, and they haven't caught on to the fact that the world is a lot different now than it was then.
Well, I think the Democrats believe we spread it out at the bottom. They're smart enough to take it away from the people. The Republicans believe if they take it in at the top, they'll leave a little bit of it drift down to the bottom. I think that's just about the difference between the two parties.
Yeah, I think from my own experience, the average Republican that I know has a fairly good amount of economic wealth, and the average Democrat I know would like to help him relieve himself of some.
I think what is needed is a realignment of the political forces, where people who believe in liberalism with a small L or even with a big L, whether in the Republican Party or whether they're in the Democratic Party, would have an opportunity to belong where they would be most comfortable. I'm positive that many of the Southern conservatives would feel far happier with the Goldwater wing of the Republican Party. So that if you take the conservatives of the Democratic Party, put them together with the conservatives of the Republican Party, in other words, use interchange, have something on the style of Great Britain. I think we're going to have to eventually go that way, because I know people who are high-ranking Republicans, who are liberals, who are not comfortable with Barry Goldwater, and I know many prominent Democrats who are not comfortable with Senator Eastland or with Harry Byrd.
I think that one of the greatest needs in this country today in the political arena is for the development of a third party. I can think back to the time when my father was active in politics in the late 20s. The Socialist Party did present a major threat to the other two parties. And as a result, in the last 20 years, most of the major planks of the Socialist Party then have been adopted. But today, there's no difference between a Republican and a Democrat, in my estimation. When, just as an example, when the Southern Democrats can vote with conservative Republicans to defeat, or hoping to defeat, which they didn't. They weren't successful, thank goodness. But when in trying to defeat a civil rights bill for basic human rights in this country, how can you say there's a difference?
Sometimes hard to tell. I think very often it's a matter of sentiment. Or if you're making a lot of money, you feel maybe you ought to be Republican. If your father belonged to a trade union, you feel maybe you ought to be a Democrat. By and large, I think the Democrats are still a bit more on the liberal side. But then again, is a Southern Democrat more liberal than a Northern Republican? I'm personally confused by the whole thing.
We have traveled from the South to the West and far West, the Middle West and the East. All in all, we've stopped by at 9 different cities. This, of course, gives us a fairly good cross-section of the feelings across the country. There is one area, however, we feel should not be neglected: your own community. As a special feature each week, What America Thinks includes the opinions of people who live in your own community. We take you now to the studios of your own local station. Those are some of the things Americans throughout the nation are thinking about this week. Each week we'll travel all over the country, talking with interesting people, average people, to find out what they're thinking about and talking about. Join us next week. Until then, this is David Wayne saying good night.